Welcome to episode 22 of the Desi Outsiders podcast. I'm Ankita.
And I'm Meenal.
And with just 3 days left to Mother's Day here in the UK, we decided to have a little chat about motherhood, what it means to us, and whether or not we see ourselves taking up the role of mothers in the future. Hope you enjoy the show.
So, Ankita, this coming weekend is very special. And you know why that is?
Yeah, you've told me like 100 times since 2000.
Because it's my happy birthday.
You told me since 2016, okay? I know your birthday. Your happy birthday is coming up.
Happy birthday. This weekend is very special. Not just because of that, but also because it's Mother's Day. Don't worry, this episode won't be about my birthday because that's going to be saved for Ankita's blog on 22 Nelson Street. And I'm pretty sure, Ankita, I haven't actually asked you, but I hope you have something ready for Friday because that's literally the only present I'll probably get.
So you actually want me to write about you on my blog on your birthday? I mean, why do you have such unrealistic expectations? I don't get it. You always do this.
Okay, you're talking as if you're hiding something, so I'm pretty sure you are. Anyways, guys, if you do see a blog post on Friday, just please tell Ankita that I was
your
very
birthday
correct
is
on that.
not even on Friday. It's on Saturday.
Yeah, but you don't write on Saturday.
So you want me to write my Friday's post about you?
Obviously.
Oh my god, such unrealistic expectations.
Ankita, I'm sorry. You always complain about there's nothing going on in your life. You should be glad that I'm giving you a topic to write about.
Okay, this is one. Okay, so no, my Friday's post is sorted out, I guess.
There you go. But anyway, back to the point of this episode. This coming Sunday on the 26th of March is Mother's Day in the UK. I'm not sure when Mother's Day is in India, Ankita. Do you know?
I think it's in May. I'm pretty sure it's in May.
Yeah. In India, they have everything there. They have Mother's Day, Sister's Day, Teacher's Day, Daughter's Day.
They literally have that everywhere in the world. I don't know why you're being so racist right now.
Really? I've never heard of that.
No, in India you have. I mean, you don't have like Raksha. I mean, in the UK you don't have something like Raksha Bandhan. But I'm pretty sure there must be a day for sisters and brothers and whatnot.
In the UK?
Everywhere. There's a day for everything,
really?
Everywhere.
Maybe I just never celebrated it as a child, so I just don't know about it.
And everywhere you turn, you won't believe it, Meenal. I just went to Sainsbury's today and there's like Mother's Day stuff everywhere. You're bombarded with reminders to get your mom a gift. You know, such corporations.
It's a good reminder.
Yeah.
So, Ankita, motherhood is a very touchy topic in India, not just for women, but also for men, because men are also put under the pressure after their marriage, or maybe even before their marriage, where parents always tell them, that we want to be alive to see our grandkids. So, Ankita, since you're married, and you've been married for close to 2 years now, have people back at home already started asking you questions about when you're planning or when you're going to have a baby?
Unfortunately, no. But that could also be because I'm actively in touch with only very few family members. And I also have very few friends back home. So I guess...
You have very few friends in general. Not just back at home.
I think it could also be because I got married at a very young age. Shane and I were both just 23 when we got married. So most people tend to assume that we're still kids. On our wedding day, Shane's uncle actually said, it looks like I'm looking like two little kids standing on the stage and just jumping around, being happy because we were literally like, oh, this is so cool. We were laughing and jumping. And, my dad, he was one person who'd always emphasize the fact that I was too young to have a baby. And he always makes it a point.
Well, a baby is literally the size of you.
Yeah, and my dad's like, you're still a baby, so how can you have a baby? And he always makes it a point to tell me that my 20s are for me to see the world, to travel, enjoy my life, and, just be happy. But, that said, I'm sure that if I called them up tomorrow to tell them that I was pregnant, they would be beyond thrilled. But what I'm trying to say is that they never tried to pull the sympathy parent card where they say things like they're getting old and they'd like to see at least their grandchild before they died. And you know what, most Indian grandparents and parents tend to pull immediately after a kid gets married. But I know that many of my friends who got married around the same time as me or who got married at the same age as me, they get asked this question a lot. And some of them, they are already mothers, actually.
Well, Ankita, I've never seen it myself because most of my friends are still studying and they don't exist. obviously I'm still studying and I'm still trying to settle down, so it's very different for me. But I've always had an attachment towards children, and I know it sounds very generic and cliche because you see a lot of girls and a lot of women or anyone in general, when they see little kids on the street or in the park, they go, "Oh, they're so cute, that baby's so cute." A majority of girls usually do have a soft spot for children, and our maternal instincts do come out every time we're even in the vicinity of anything that's childlike. Like, "Oh, that baby in the commercial is so cute," or "Oh, that baby who's stamped on my Maggie packet is so adorable." But
Okay, I really like your baby voice. I mean, that's the way I talk to little doggies. So, you were saying.
if only we met when we were kids. But most of my classmates have never spoken about having kids, and all of a sudden after our pediatric rotation, most girls have planned out when they'll have kids, how many they'll have, their names, their future jobs.
Oh, are they Indians?
So,
is that why they know the future jobs?
A lot of them are European, so.
but you mentioned this thing about girls and women in general. They have a soft spot for little kids and they think they're so cute and they have maternal instincts growing up. One thing I've noticed growing up in India is that everyone used to say things like, when you have a child, when you become a mother, and no one ever used the word if. So no one made it a choice. It was pretty much the same with marriage as well, because till date, girls are told things like when you get married, when you have a child, when you have 2 children or 3 children. And the question of a choice doesn't exist in our vocabulary, and no one ever says if. And obviously no one asks these girls like me if they want to get married at some point or have children of their own. It's kind of expected of them to want all those things in the future. So before we proceed, I want to ask you, because you were raised in Europe by Indian parents, were you ever given the choice to form your opinion about wanting to become a mother, or were you just expected to want it no matter what?
Ankita, I've never had that problem, and it's for obvious reasons, because I'm still studying and I'm still very far from settling down. But funnily enough, my parents have never really raised the topic of having grandkids, and I think they probably think that it's just way too early to even have a conversation like this. They still see me as a child, and especially my dad, I'll always be like his daddy's girl, so he's never really seen me getting married or having kids, at least for now. But there is one toddler from my dad's side of the family, and she addresses my mom as Nani, and my mom just loves it. Like, she just can't stop talking about it. So I can see in my parents that, when my parents are around kids from our family or from anyone's family, they do get very emotional and they do get very attached. So I'm sure that my parents would be over the moon if they had grandkids. But they've never pressured me into that. And not just even having grandkids, they've never really pressured me into the question about being married. So children is just way far down the line. But to be very honest, Angita, I really believe that my parents would never pressure me for either of those things.
That's great. But I wanted to ask you, so what does motherhood mean to you?
It's very difficult for me to define that, Ankita, and I'm pretty sure this term is very subjective to people, and it is also based around your own personal experiences and what you've seen in your own life. And I'm also pretty sure that your definition of motherhood would probably change after having your first child or second child. It's not something that is...
It's an ongoing process. You learn as you grow. Yeah.
Is nothing that's set in stone. But to me, I think motherhood is about having an endless love for your child, no matter how they are, what they are, the character they have. It's about having an endless love with no boundaries, and raising them to teach them the beauties of the world and the wonders of the world. And I think motherhood is also about teaching your children to become adults, to carry your principles, your family values, and your morals onto the next generation. And we will discuss this later on in the podcast, but, when you talk about the idea of family and the idea of having children, it is just like sowing seeds, isn't it? You just want to sow the seeds so that your future generations have a better life ahead of them. So motherhood I feel, is also about sowing your seeds right, not just to help your own children, but also to help their children and future generations. Now, Ankita, seeing that you are 2 years into your marriage and you probably have thought about having kids more than I have, I'm sure your definition of motherhood would probably be different to mine, quite different to mine at least.
I mean, like you just mentioned, it is something that it's an ongoing process and it keeps changing with time and you keep learning and you keep growing. But I have given this a lot of thought. It's not just because I'm married or because I found someone that I would like to have kids with, or it's not any of that. It's just that I've been thinking about the term motherhood and what it means to me from the time I was really young. And I feel that to me, it is a combination of, infinite selfless love and immense responsibility. And this responsibility aspect of it is what is most important to me. I've heard that, becoming a mother changes women and that most people tend to experience the deepest form of love after becoming mothers. And when women say that their lives fill up with love when they have kids, they are mostly not talking about the love they're receiving, but more about the love they're giving to their children. So their life is full of love in terms of the love that they are giving. And of course, there are many cases where mothers end up resenting their kids, thinking of them as burden and don't care about them at all. But these cases are quite possibly those of deviance from the norm. And I'm pretty sure they're not very common to come across. But the love part is something, Meenal, that I can do. I know that I'm capable of giving my everything and more to the people I love. So it goes without saying that I will love my own child to bits, but it's the responsibility part that scares me. It really frightens me.
Well, Ankita, you took care of me for a week, so
You're not a
I'm still
child.
alive.
You basically took care of me. You fed me for a week. But I've actually given this a lot of thought, and I think a lot of people don't think about the responsibility aspect of it as much as maybe people like me do. People like me who end up thinking a lot. And I feel that the responsibility on their shoulders to raise a good human being and a good citizen of the future, and that's something that I think about a lot, and it scares me because I keep thinking about all the messages I want to send out to my son to make sure that he doesn't grow up to disrespect another human being or try to force himself on a girl. Or what example do I set for my daughter so that she doesn't grow up to take abuse from a partner and just keep quiet about it and silently bear it. I want to be a mom that my children have the full freedom to discuss anything with. And if my
But you
child
see, Ankita, you're saying all of these things now,
yeah
and you haven't had a child yet.
yeah that's the thing.
I'm very sure that when you have a child,
It's all going to change.
it is going to
And
change,
that's
and
scary.
when you have your first child, we'll record another podcast
About how I'm saying I want to be like my child's friend and I want them to have the freedom to come and tell me anything. God alone knows what kind of a mom I'm going to end up being. But as far as what I want to be is concerned, if my child wants to go to class dressed as a potato one day, I want to be the mom who goes out of her way to find that potato costume and, give it to him or her and encourage this child to do that, because I want my child to learn and grow through these life experiences. But
and then my kid would be the one who would bully your kid for
kid-
dressing up as a potato.
yeah. I mean, whatever the bullying experience or whatever, just go through
yeah.
it, because if it was your choice to wear the potato costume, just go ahead and do it. And I'm going to help you. I'm going to facilitate that. But then I think, what if my son comes up to me with the freedom I gave him throughout his life to tell me whatever he feels like? What if he came up to me to say that he is sexually attracted to only young 12 or 13-year-old girls? Or what if my daughter, whose every choice I've encouraged and supported, just suppose I've encouraged and supported all the life choices by my daughter, and she comes up to me and says she's given this a lot of thought and she wants to start working in the porn industry. And these are things that scare me, because these might clash with my personal value systems, and trying to work my way around these things would make me no different from a very traditional Indian mother who doesn't want her child to marry someone outside her religion or her community or her caste. And here I am, making this podcast and saying respect other people's choices, respect other human beings. And I feel that what will be the difference between me and a mother today who's not respecting her daughter's choice because she doesn't understand certain things? What if I become like that? And
well, Ankita, I think that what was wrong 20 years ago is not wrong anymore.
yeah,
And what we might feel is wrong now might not be wrong in
Yeah.
the next 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, just a perfect example is gay marriage.
Yeah.
Nobody 20, 30 years ago thought people would be getting married if
Yeah.
they're homosexuals.
Yeah.
So I think that we have to, and I completely understand where you're coming from, because I know you're a very controlling person and you want things to go your way all the time. And obviously you know that that's not going to happen when you have a child.
That's the thing that scares me. I want to keep it
Yeah.
aside.
That's the thing
Yeah.
that scares you, and it's completely understandable. But I think that when you do have kids, the controlling factor shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even as children, we were controlled quite a lot, and we turned out okay.
Oh, did you say should or shouldn't be there?
It should be there.
Should be there. Okay.
Yeah.
That's easy for me to have, the controlling factor, but there are places where it should go away, and not being able to, I guess.
You're worried you're going to have a disbalance of controlling and not having that controlling factor.
Plus,
which is why you think that my daughter might want to work in the porn industry, because you're worried about this balance.
yeah, and it's also a lack of control on what the future entails, and these are things you can't possibly control, like what they could just come up and say to you one day.
We've mentioned this so many times in our podcast, and it's nature versus nurture. You can control a lot of things that you tell them at home and how you raise them. You don't know what they're doing in school a lot of the time. You don't know what they're going to do on the internet. I mean, now we have the internet. God knows what we're going to have in the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah. And
so
it's also just a personal belief that if I can't be a mother who supports and encourages her child and respects her child's decisions, I will fail as a mother in my own eyes. That's the kind of feeling I have, because it's something I have upheld. And I want to be, if I become a mom, I want to be the mom who would respect her child's decisions and be very supportive and encouraging. So, it's just a bunch of things going on in my head about this topic.
It really brings a very important question pertaining to our conversation that we're having today on the podcast. And I would like to know, Ankita, do you really want to have kids? Like, would you consider having kids anytime soon?
In this stage of my life, I cannot even picture it. So I think my answer would be no. So this is not a definite no, as if I'm never going to have kids. I'm just saying that this is something that can change, because we are, as human beings, learning and changing and growing. But at this stage in my life, I can say without any doubt that I do not want to have kids, because like I told you earlier, I've probably put way more thought into this than you'd imagine. And I've been thinking about motherhood from the age when I realized that it wasn't presented to me as a choice, but as a definite outcome in my life. And, I feel that I can be a great aunt. Like, if you have a kid, Meenal, or if like my cousins have kids, I can be a great aunt, because it gives me the freedom to just spoil and pamper a child without worrying too much about the other aspects of raising another human being, and you know how on a flight, most people might look at a cute baby and go, oh, what a cute baby. Mm-hmm. But I mostly tend to notice the things the parents of this baby are carrying with them, so that they can help their kid or their other kids and other passengers have a smooth flight. And I mostly tend to analyze and think about the various things I would want to do as a responsible parent, which is not what most people associate to children, I believe. I mean, I'm sure for most people, they see a cute child, they play with it, and they say things like, I can't wait to have a child of my own.
That's literally me.
That's you. You see a cute kid and you're like, oh, so cute, let me play with it. And then you're like, oh, I want to have a child of my own. And then, you deal with it as it happens, as motherhood unfolds or parenthood unfolds. I, on the other hand, would look up children's literature and think, if I have a child, these are the books I will read to it, and these are the books I will make it read. And unlike most,
you don't call your child it
because it's a child. But what I'm saying is that unlike most people who think about having the child first and dealing with the parenting aspect of it later, I somehow turned out to be the person who's been researching what kind of parent I want to be if I choose to go down that path, and then thinking about whether or not I want to have a baby. So long story short, I believe I'm not done with my research yet. And while I might look forward to the good things that come with becoming a mother, I'm not so ready for all the uncertainties and all the bad things that come with it, things I have no control over. And knowing that I have zero control over these uncertainties actually frightens me.
Ankita, can I just ask you a question?
Yeah.
It's not really entirely related to motherhood, but it's just related to life in general. And you mentioned that having kids brings about a lot of uncertainties. And yes, you have someone's life in your hands, or anything that you can do that can actually have an impact in their future and in their lives.
Yeah.
You feel that you have a great responsibility on your shoulders, and I totally get that. But you mentioned this thing about having uncertainties. But Ankita, don't we have uncertainties in our life in general, where a lot of the times we live our life and we don't step out of our comfort zone because we're comfortable where we are, and we don't want to step outside because it's a whole new world for us and there are a lot of uncertainties and we're scared of facing these. But Ankita, in your life, you've done things where you have stepped out of your comfort zone.
That's
You've
true.
done things
I'm pretty
which
sure
you're scared of.
I went through a phase. I'm pretty sure I went through a phase when I said I'm never getting married because I didn't know a lot of happily married people. And that had nothing to do with how my marriage turned out, because I did get married really young. That too. The minute I realized that I'm like madly in love, or I found the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with, I was totally okay with getting married, and that never came in the way. And this is what I meant. Like, it's not a definite no. We change and we grow, but sometimes you just know at some stage in your life that this uncertainty, it's not a problem at all. You can deal with it because you want something so much that all the uncertainties that come with it, you will just deal with it. So I want to ask you now, do you want to become a mother someday?
Okay, so please, of course, I want to have an empire of kids, and my whole empire of kids will run. They'll play basketball and they'll become Olympians at the age of 12. Like,
you can have your own football team and your cricket team.
It will probably be the first Indian football team to play at the world stage, and they'll all have the same surname at the back of the t-shirts. That would be pretty funny. But I've never looked at motherhood the way you have, Ankita. And back to serious notes, I've always thought that I would have kids, and then as I have kids, then problems will always come, and their implications would come as we go along. And I believe that as a mother, and not just in motherhood, Ankita, just generally in life, that yes, and this is why I asked you about this whole uncertainties thing, because there are a lot of situations where I've put myself in and I haven't been fully confident.
Right.
And I don't know if I can handle the situation as smoothly and operate everything as I would like to.
Right.
But my belief is that if you take the right steps along the way, if you do the right thing every day, generally, from the bigger picture, you reduce the risk of things that could go wrong, at least to the best of your ability. And that's what matters, I think. It's how much you can do and how much you can give. Now, again, if I teach my kids the right things at home, if I involve them within the right communities, whether it's in school, whether it's in their sports clubs, whatever it is, then their values will start to develop on their own. And it's not just giving them the values, Ankita, it's also practicing their values. And because I've personally seen so many things go wrong in children, despite having the best parents you can think of, I'm fully aware that many things are beyond our control. And even with my very strict upbringing, and I say strict upbringing, but I don't resent it now.
Right.
I'm quite grateful for a lot of things. But there was a time when I was a teenager and I almost got into the wrong crowd. But I think that just my innate feelings were still strongly bound to the values and principles that my parents raised me with. So I didn't go off track completely.
That makes a lot of sense, Meenal, what you just said, because, sometimes you don't have control over it, and, you just have to plant the seeds the right way, as you said. But growing up in Europe, like you mentioned, you almost got into the wrong group and into the wrong crowd. How is it different from your home? Like, how you must have grown up seeing motherhood in different forms, be it your friends' parents or your family members' parents.
Well, yeah, and I think motherhood is not just, you can't divide it between India and Europe or Europe and Africa, whatever. Motherhood is different in every home. It's something that you will find different wherever you are in the world. Now, obviously, my mom had a certain way of going about our everyday lives, and we had to shower at a specific time, we had to eat at a specific time, and I still remember that if at any point our schedules were just a few minutes off, we were pretty sure World War III was imminent in our house. But I saw it differently in other homes. And again, not to say that this is wrong. In fact, nobody knows how to define the right mother
Yeah.
or the best mother or the perfect mother. There are so many factors involved when you're looking at the well-being of a child. And as I just mentioned, you can have the greatest mother on the planet, but for one reason or the other, her son may turn out to be a drug dealer. And then you may have a mother who's a drug dealer and a son can go on to win a Nobel Prize. You just don't know.
You never know these things.
You never know what can happen.
Yeah.
And yes, I saw how mothers behaved with their children in different homes, in the sense that I had to have dinner at a certain time. But in some households, the mothers would say, "Are you hungry?" If the kid said yes, and then make dinner.
Right.
If no, then go to bed.
Okay.
You know what's really funny, Ankita? That there were times where I would be invited to other people's homes and their mothers would give me a sandwich for dinner. And I'd be like, "What are you giving me?"
Oh my
so
God.
I'd actually go home and have a proper meal.
You're
like,
such a fatty.
My sabzi, my roti, like.
Oh my God. That's actually adorable.
So for me, that was something that I thought was very different. People's eating schedules, sleeping times. Like, I had to go to bed at a specific time. I had to shower at a specific time and even pray at a specific time.
Right.
But again, I don't resent any of this because it's shaped my character quite deeply. And obviously, these are the values you only appreciate when you leave home and you have to face the world for yourself. But speaking, I wanted to mention my mother's story.
Yeah.
My father was raised in a very poor family in India. Actually, if you listen to one of our podcast episodes, he tells us a story of how he came to Europe with £5 in his pocket. He made a special appearance. But he was raised in a poor family with very little opportunity. My father's mom would send my father off to wash dishes at the age of 11 and tell him that he couldn't come back home unless he came back with money for the family.
Oh, wow.
So he was never given an opportunity to live as a child or to experience his childhood. He wasn't even given money to buy a pencil for a school or to buy a new textbook. But despite all of this, Ankita, he was the only one out of 7 children who plowed ahead. He made something of his life. He became successful and he built his life in Europe.
I mean, and look at you. I mean, his kids are all doing well in life, and
you don't have to say that.
I mean, and you're sitting here doing a podcast while you're you have your medical career to look forward to, and he actually gave you a good education, and now you're doing medicine, and I think he's come a long way.
Well, that just goes to show that whatever mother you're raised with, or whoever your mother is, that shouldn't completely shape or define your life, Ankita. And I think this is one reason why I believe that you shouldn't be so worried about all these uncertainties.
Yeah, but while what you say makes absolute sense to me right now, the things that you said are completely beyond our control about like a kid turning into a drug dealer. These are the things.
I think I've put this in your head now. Like, you think your kid is going to be a drug dealer?
It's not just about being let's not get into all that. I just feel that these are the things that scare me more than the thought of a tiny human coming out of my vagina. Because, even if I were to adopt a child or become a mother through surrogacy, the nature aspect of it is not what scares me. The nurture part of it is what makes me slightly anxious, because like you said earlier, there's no one perfect mother or one perfect parent. You grow up making mental notes that you won't make the same mistakes your parents made. And then you go ahead and you make your own set of mistakes as a parent. And that's something that I just cannot understand why there's
I'm sure there are a lot of people who throughout their lives have said, I'm definitely not going to do what my parents did. And then subconsciously they do the exact same thing.
Either they do the exact same thing, or in their attempt to become the exact opposite of everything their parents were, they turn out to be their own kind of monsters,
I think I'd like to end this episode on a few things. And I have a few questions for our listeners. And one of them is, why do people even have kids in the first place? Like, is there some selfish goal to replicate your genes and to continue your family's bloodline? Is it because you want to spend the rest of your life nurturing and raising a child in your family selflessly? Because obviously having a child is a huge investment.
Yeah.
It's a huge, not just emotionally, but financially.
Yeah.
And I really want to know why people believe that having kids is an important aspect of their life.
I mean, if you ask me, I feel that no baby, not even a single baby in this world, should come in unwelcome or unwanted. I feel that the most unfair form of suffering is when a child suffers, because at least with most adults, when things go wrong, they have some form of power or the other to change their circumstances, because chances are that they got into these problems as a result of their own actions and their own choices. But most of the time, when a child suffers, it's only because of the actions of the adults in its life. So no child ever chose to just come into this world on its own. And at least one adult made the active and conscious choice of bringing a child into this world. Now, I don't mean to say this in a judgmental way, but I feel that making the choice to bring a child into this world and then making it suffer is really unfair. And moreover, whatever selfish reasons or selfless reasons, no baby should just come in unwanted.
Yeah, Ankita, I totally agree with your point, and I'd really just love to hear from our listeners, especially those who are planning to become mothers or those who are close to motherhood.
Yeah.
So there you have it. We've given you two completely different takes on this topic of motherhood. Ankita is frightened of having kids, and I can't wait to have kids.
But so weird to hear Ankita is frightened of kids. Yeah, but yeah.
We hope you could relate to myself or Ankita or either of us, and if you couldn't relate to any of us, we'd love to know why.
Yeah.
There's no one right belief system in the world, and we're all free to discuss and expand our views. So do tell us any other perspectives you may have, or any stories you'd like to tell us. You can send them into mail@desioutsiders.com.
You can also send us a message on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter @the Desi Outsiders.
So until next week, I'm Meenal.
And I'm Ankita.
And we're the Desi Outsiders.